I call to order the Wednesday, November 20th, 2024, 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Keys.
Here.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Vice Chair Browning.
Present.
Chair Schweitzer.
Present.
Alderwoman Velazquez. We have 4 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, November 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Vollmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys.
Here. No, aye. Sorry about that. Aye.
We'll take all three.
Alderwoman Velazquez. Vice Chair Browning.
Aye.
Chair Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velazquez. We have 4 aye votes.
By your vote, you have sustained the motion from the Alderman from the 5th, and we have approved the minutes of Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. Moving to board bills for review. We will begin with item number 3, introduced by Alderman Aldridge. Alderman Aldridge, you are recognized on board bill number 134.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Madam Clerk, would you read the summary of Board Bill 134, please? Sorry for not also bringing it to your attention ahead of time.
I'm sorry, Board Bill 134?
Yes, ma'am.
Board Bill 134, introduced by Alderman Rasheen Aldridge. Pursuant to ordinance number 68937, the proposed bill authorizes an honorary street name, Pastor C.D. Wells Way, which shall begin at the intersection of Palm Street and Jefferson Avenue to the intersection of Hebert Street and Jefferson Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, members of the committee. This is Board Bill 134 is an honorary street name for my pastor, Pastor C.D. Wells. He's actually probably been pastoring this church way before, actually he has, way before I was born, as he is getting a little up in age. He has done just a lot of great work for the community, and this is actually a request that has come from the church to kind of do a surprise. So I hope he's not watching at the moment, or will be watching in the future, because then the surprise will be ruined. But I also have an amendment in front of everybody, and if you do not have it, it should be in your drive. Most likely it's in the drive. It's amendment number 1 to Board Bill 134, where we're doing the whereas, adding the whereases to the board bill. When the board bill was submitted, the whereas is talking about Pastor C.D. Wells was not in the bill, so we're just adding the whereas to give a little bit more content, or a little bit more clarity and information to individuals on the importance of the honorary street name.
Thank you, Alderman. I will accept a motion to adopt amendment number 1 to amendment 134.
So moved.
Second.
Previous roll.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th. Any discussion? There's been a call for previous roll. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing none, we have adopted amendment number 1 to board bill number 134. Alderman, you may.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Again, as you look into the whereas clauses, it just explains a little bit more in depth about why the honorary street name is necessary. As I mentioned, Pastor has been pastoring this church since 1979. I was born in 94, so way before I was in the area, but he has just done in the area, since way before I was born, not in the area, but he's just done magnificent work for this church. Actually, when Alderwoman and former Mayor Lyda Crewson was the mayor at the time, she actually provided him with a proclamation. So this is just an extension to all the great work that he's done for the area, for the church. They feed so many families with their brown bag giveaway. They've partnered with Gateway 180 Homeless Shelter, which sits in the 14th Ward, to provide not just peanut butter sandwiches, but ham sandwiches and other items to the shelter in time of need, as well as we get ready for the holiday time, they will be gearing up again for their Thanksgiving giveaway. But has raised and groomed so many young people, including myself. Give a shout out to my cousin, to Terica Brown. I'll make sure I have her watch this, because we used to terrorize the church, and he continued to invest in us and mentor us as we would just do silly things that teens would do. But he's just been a great pastor and led a great ministry over the last few decades. And with that, I would open up for any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Alderman. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers on this or comments?
No comments, no written testimonies.
Thank you. Alderman Vollmer.
No, just coming up, once again, you surprised me, never had amendments for honorary street names before, but you found a way to do it.
Thorough.
I keep trying to do things that haven't been done before. I
Thank
think I did an amendment on a speed hump on the floor
We'll
before.
have to pass a resolution saluting you on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Keys.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
Have me as a co-sponsor if you like.
So noted.
Wonderful. Vice Chair Browning.
No questions.
No questions here either. Thank you for bringing this forward. He sounds like a really a person we're celebrating. So thank you for doing this for him.
No problem. Thank you,
I
Madam
think-
Chairwoman and members of the committee, and also thank you to the 11th Award for adding herself as a co-sponsor. Since there's no more questions, I would just ask the Pew Committee if I can get a do pass recommendation on Board Bill 134 as amended.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion for a due pass recommendation of Board Bill 134 as amended.
Second.
Previous roll.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderman from the 11th. Any discussion? There's been a call for previous roll from the Alderman from the 9th. Hearing no objection, we have passed Board Bill number 134 as amended with a due pass recommendation. Thank you, Alderman.
Thank you, members of the committee and Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Because we have a speaker in the audience for this one, I will move on to Board Bill number 133, which is sponsored by me. So Vice Chair Browning, if you don't mind taking over.
Happily. Alderwoman Schweitzer, you are recognized on Board Bill 133.
Cheerfully.
Thank you, Vice Chair Browning and members of the committee. Madam Clerk, can you please read the introduction to Board Bill number 133?
Board Bill 133, introduced by Alderwoman Ann Schweitzer, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service of the City of St. Louis, establishing multiple public works and improvement projects on the Laurel and Waterman Bridge, traffic management enhancements on South Broadway and North Broadway, River de Perry Boulevard, and Blue Stop upgrade on Grand, Delmore, and Cass within the City of St. Louis, and containing an emergency clause.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Here today with us from the Board of Public Service, we have John Kohler, who is really leading the effort on a lot of these projects and is here to speak to us a little bit more about them. And I'd love to have Mr. Kohler come up now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As many of you know, I manage the Planning and Programming Division for the Board of Public Service, and I orchestrate a lot of the federal projects involving transportation and submit applications to East-West Gateway and the federal government to pursue some of these grant opportunities. And this bill addresses 5 successful federally funded transportation projects. And I'm here today to give a brief introduction of those 5 and then address any questions that you might have. So the first one involves the Laurel and Waterman Bridge over Metrolink. It's just north of Forest Park in the Skinker to Bolivar neighborhood, and involves the removal and reconstruction of that bridge over Metrolink. The current bridge was built in 1936. It's structurally deficient, and it has a sufficiency rating of 36%. The bridge has poor superstructure and substructure ratings. It has a posted weight limit,
Okay.
and the bridge railings do not meet the current safety standards. And if you'd like, I can stop and address questions or go through them all. Okay, sure. The second one is a congestion mitigation air quality type grant. We call it Traffic Management Phase 7. It's on South Broadway from Marceau to Carroll. It upgrades 21 traffic signals along that route, new monitoring cameras, and other equipment on 6.1 miles of South Broadway. We also, as part of that project, integrate new fiber optic interconnections for the signals, and we link them to the city's traffic management center. We also, as part of this, we optimize the traffic timing to reduce the amount of emissions and improve air quality. At every intersection, there's a component that will upgrade all the curb ramps to make them compliant with the current American with Disabilities Act. And a second very similar project is on North Broadway. We call it Phase 8. It's on from Cass to Riverview. It is approximately 6.8 miles with 13 traffic signals, but very similar work as I just described on the previous South Broadway project. On the fourth project, this is a major initiative on River to Pear Boulevard from Gravois to Lansdowne. It's 2.4 miles and involves widening and resurfacing the roadway, raised concrete median, new traffic signal at Loughborough, transit stop improvements, enhanced pedestrian connections, acceleration, deceleration lanes at Chippewa Street interchange, dedicated left turn lane at intersections, guardrail, curve warning signage, high friction pavement, street lighting, and some landscaping. And the last project's a partnership collaboration with Bi-State. We are looking at improving accessibility at bus stops along 3 of the arterials. We'll focus on both movement and access for pedestrians with disabilities, make some improvements at existing stops along Grand from Holly Hills to Hall Street, Delmar from Hodemount to Kings Highway, and Cass from Grand to Kings Highway. Bi-State's actually managing this project. We are giving Bi-State $300,000 federal or local match money to support the 20% local match for that project. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you. We'll go through committee, starting with Alderman Volmer.
Thank you, John. So my first question was where the funding's coming from. So it's federal and it's costing us $300,000 as a 20% match is where it's at?
For that bus stop.
For that one.
Right.
And the rest of it is going through,
So in the bill, they will actually define all the funding sources. 80% typically is what the federal amount is,
Sure.
and then the 20% local match is a myriad of award capital, it's streets and bridge funds, bonds funds, other general.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I'm familiar. We using railroad money and federal money in my ward. I get it. Thank you very much. You're making it sound like a place I want to move to. You're doing so many improvements.
Thank you.
All right. No further questions.
Thank you. Alderwoman Keys.
You had me at federal funding. So yeah, definitely, I'm excited to hear that these things are coming. I'd like to be a co-sponsor, please. Thank you.
So now-
Bridges, bus stops, boulevards, what's not to like here? This sounds fantastic. We're really excited to see infrastructure upgrades in our city, especially on North and South Broadway, places that I think could really use it. River to Pear, another great location, replacing critical infrastructure that I think will just benefit our city long term. So thank you to all the work that you all do in BPS and continuing to improve our city. I too would like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you.
And Alderwoman Schweitzer, I assume you have no questions about your own bill. So unless anyone else has any items, you're recognized to close.
Sure.
Thank you so much to Mr. Kohler for coming today, and thank you. I would be remiss not to thank you for all the times you've answered every question I've had and kept me up to date on every project that's going on, not only in my ward, but in the city, and how much time I know you put into this bill to make it exactly right. So thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer, I just realized I did forget to ask if there's any public comment before
Oh,
I
yes, thank you.
acknowledge you for closing. So is there any public comment for this? No public comment. Okay,
No
now you may
public
proceed.
comment.
Thank you. That is incredibly important. I really appreciate that piece. So with that, I would appreciate a motion for a do pass recommendation if the committee sees fit.
I will entertain a motion for a due pass recommendation for Board Bill
So
133.
moved.
Second.
Previous rule.
Hearing a call for previous roll. Hearing no objections. Congratulations, Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you.
You are now recognized on Board Bill 104.
104. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wait, I think that's fine. This is yours. This is mine. No, that's yours. Okay. Okay, thank you. I have the same notebook right there, so that's why. Thank you very much. So now we'll move to Board Bill 104. Thank you. This is the utility bill that we've been working on for the last several months. And today there is a committee substitute. I have a presentation, which I believe Madam Clerk is pulling up now. So depending on the will of the committee, we could adopt the committee substitute and then give the presentation, or I could give the presentation during the discussion portion of that motion. So up to you whether you'd make the full motion before.
Well, we've had extensive discussion on this in the committee, but if it's all, I think we'll just go ahead with the presentation first, and then we can adopt the substitute after we've gone over.
Well, we have to adopt the substitute and then we have to.
Sure, we do have to do that. You're right. So at this time, I guess we're taking a vote to adopt the substitute. I'll take a motion to do so.
So moved.
Second.
Previous rule.
Okay, we've adopted the substitute.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
So this is the substitute that is in front of you has been a result of so much work of the utility companies, of the administration, of my office, especially Christian Bishop. And it is I just want to say thank you up front to everybody who's put in the numerous hours on you to Vice Chair Brown. Next slide. Nothing changed in the introduction. It stays exactly the same, and it's still part of the bill for what is being repealed. Next section, next slide. The definitions, there have been some changes in what the definitions are in the list in the committee substitute. It also outlines definitions for utility provider and emergency repair as reflected in the state statutes. Making sure that the streets department is defined to include the successor department as well, which will become effective in the future of the Department of Transportation. Next slide. The coordination section has changed in order, one, but also some things that have changed, placing all of the implementation and coordination within the streets department. That's something we discussed a few times. That was a priority of the administration. Also made sure that there is a penalty for failing to provide plans. The utility providers have already worked with the administration to provide plans as of early this fall. So there's a good process in place already for what's being asked for, and that will be written out more specifically by the streets department, but it is already something that they've been asked for, that they provided, and we have established a bit of that process already in the regular work of the department. Next slide. Continuing on with this, the quarterly updates that are being solicited by the streets department and are noted here, so that we'll be asking for updates quarterly from utilities just to keep our information up to date. This section, the last section here, is relating to the city providing its citywide paving plan in consultation with BPS yearly by July 1st. So that's going into the new budget year. Ward capital conversations should have happened by then. The next 1 year, 2 years, even 3 years of projects should at least have been identified. That's something that would be on the city to provide every year. And that's really important because we would be, in this bill, creating the moratorium so that utilities are able to not able to do work on city streets within 5 years after they've been repaved. So trying to set up the expectation that that information will be provided in advance by the streets department so that utilities can help with their planning process as well. And later we'll talk about what happens when utilities are able to do work within a year of that planned work, which makes it a benefit for them to do so. Next slide. So this is where it goes a little, the moratorium on utility work has been incredibly expanded to meet the needs of the utility providers and other stakeholders that do work on our streets, including allowances for new construction, development, establishing service, any work that's been mandated by city, state, or federal legislation. If there is something that has to happen because it's an emergency, all of that is outlined in there, as well as the process for making sure that the utility is able to do the work that meets one of those conditions. One of the things that was flagged in the previous bill too is that the 6-week repair window wasn't enough time, especially considering weather. So it was expanded to 8 weeks with the provision that written appeals are possible if extensions are needed. So if we have, 4 months of deep freeze, snow on the ground or something like that, that it's understood that, you can't pour asphalt at that time. Or no one's expecting you to. Next slide. This section was really fleshed out a bit, but is largely the same in terms of the goal of it, which is to put the responsibility of repair of the street, of restoration of the street after utility work on the utility provider, and it's just been lengthened to provide more clarity. We also expanded the open window for work before street repair and repaving or restoration by the city to a year instead of 6 months prior, because that would allow the utility provider to better plan their work and get all the permits they need and everything like that to make sure that they're able to do work in advance of planned city work and have a lot less that they need to do. Of course, still better than now because they would be patching the streets with the appropriate materials, asphalt on asphalt, concrete on concrete, for example, but less, reliance on the joint-to-joint repairs, on expanded patches, on repairing full lane width. I think we've all driven down streets where there's a concrete cut in the middle of the lane for 8 blocks. They'd be able to leave it like that if it's right before the city is going to pave it, but not if it wasn't on the paving list and it was left in that condition. So next slide. That's where in the next slide, and in section 6, we go further into exactly what the expectations are for utilities when they're doing excavation work. It talks about the and one of the things that was flagged for us is that first off, that the MoDOT standards are so extensive and that we really want to focus this bill on the excavation, repair, and reconstruction standards. So that's what's laid out and pointed to here. And then Exhibit C shows what those standards are. As it starts laying out some more specifics that would be expected in the city, it also talks about the joint-to-joint or full lane repair as needed instead of 3-foot patches that are half between the parking lane and the driving lane and cause issues in both sections. It talks about the backfilling material improving and meeting the standards that are set. And it also gives information about what we meant by a full block should be repaved or repaired, restored if more than 20% of the block is cut up, unless that 20% is in a continuous location in place the entire block wouldn't have to be repaired. So we tried to make that a little bit clearer. Next slide. That continues with the clarifying of the standards, talking about the making sure how that the entire lane would be repaired if there is work that travels down an entire lane for that 20% of the block. It talks about steel plates. So in our previous version, we'd had language about embedding the street plates. After extensive conversation with the utility providers and thinking about how this will be enforced, it made more sense to allow for steel plates to be pinned and asphalt ramped everywhere as opposed to embedded, because this allows honestly just an easier opportunity for when work is happening. We know that it's left the way it should be. Everyone will expect it to look the same, no matter where it is, no matter if it's sidewalk, the bike lane, the parking lane, no matter how fast that road or with the speed limit of that road, and just being very clear what is supposed to be there in a simple way as possible so that whether you're on a bike or in a car or in a wheelchair, you'll be able to navigate over that plate no matter where it is. It talks, go back, please. The patches, there we had language in our previous version about combining patches in a larger patch. Often you'll see work that's done, maybe in 20 feet, there's 3 patches all made by the same utility provider for the same job, and it actually causes a lot more places for water to enter the roads, more places for issues to occur. So making sure that patches are combined, but we did get flagged that what if there was already a patch nearby? Are we really responsible for going all the way to the end of that patch, redoing them? And we thought, no, that wouldn't be a fair request. But especially since we're trying to make sure that when they do work, they can control that they're following these standards, and it just makes enforcement easier as well. I think all of that, having a hard time reading it, that's on me. Yeah, so that talks about the restoring in kind of roadway features that are like if there is a traffic circle or a speed hump, for example, it can't just be cut out, repaired with the utility work and not be returned to a speed hump or a traffic circle. So that makes sure that all of our features that are so important and cost us all so much in port capital are returned the way they should be. And then the last one talks about the concrete cuts for joint to joint, which is standard in concrete repair. Next slide. We really revamped this section to make sense for what sort of fees need to be charged, and how who they should be paid to, what sort of fees can be charged for a deposit, making sure that that deposit is significant enough so that when there is an issue with a cut, there is an amount of money the city is able to hold on to for a year to make sure that that work is done well, and we have that full year of time to come back and make that final inspection before returning the deposit. But it is not so large that it is prohibitive for folks to actually make the repair they need, especially if it's someone, a homeowner, for example, applying for an excavation permit. We don't change the application fee. And then we added in Madam Clerk, do you mind moving the mouse? Thank you. One more back. Thanks. So we had in here too an additional degradation fee to be possible. It's not mandated. It is a possibility if the streets department does score the roads to allow for a degradation fee as well, especially if we have an incredible road that gets cut up. What are we doing to make sure the city is getting an appropriate amount of funding for the degradation of that road as well? Then the application fee and amount remains the same as charged currently. Next slide. We added in further language around penalties for noncompliance and the debarment process in case there is repeated evidence of not following these standards. That's what Section 8 goes over. And Section 9 is a severability clause. So that is just if any section is found to be illegal, then the remaining section still remains standing and enforceable. Next slide. So that's everything that's changed from the previous version to this version. But it's not, the conversation's not over. I do hope that we pass this bill out of committee today so that we can keep it moving along for final passage before the end of the year. But I am still talking regularly with utility companies and people who do this work, as well as the relevant departments, about anything else that is in the bill that they have questions on, and perfection is December 6th. So ideally, again, that it would pass out of committee today if approved by the committee, and then there would be still time to make any amendments if we felt that they were needed before the December 6th date. So next slide. That is the presentation. I appreciate you all going on this journey with me through this bill. I know that we've talked about it a lot, and I am very grateful for all of the effort and guidance you all have provided to date. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alderwoman Schweitzer. I guess we will go to committee for questions. Alderman Volmer.
Do you require any oxygen after all that?
I'm
You need to
okay.
come up
I'm
for
just
air.
going over all the things I forgot to tell you.
You-
So,
You've proven the devil is in the details. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Alderwoman Keys.
No questions. Everything looks pretty comprehensive, so good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues. It's clear how much work has gone into this. I know firsthand how much work has gone into this, and the details are in this bill. Just from my knowledge of the discussions, I'm really glad to see things got ironed out, like further exploration of like what does 20% of the street mean, and what kind of fees can we add to make sure there's compliance, and making sure that the city is never left in position where we've spent our taxpayer money on paving our streets only to see them ruined by other work that needs to be completed. So I really, really appreciate your work on this. And it sounds like it's going to get passed just in time for the holidays. And I can't think of a better gift to our city. So thank you again. And we can hear from the public if there's any testimony.
We have one speaker, Mr. Castro with AT&T Undetermined.
Okay. You could raise your right hand and promise to tell the truth and the whole truth.
I do.
Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and the company you're from, and then you can proceed.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Jomo Castro, AT&T, Regional Director, External Affairs, so Government Community Relations.
Well, thank you.
Yep. And so first and foremost, just want to acknowledge the great work that the committee has done. Clearly, quite a bit of work has gone into this bill. Really appreciate the feedback as well, the opportunity for feedback, and the continued dialogue with the city or with the utility companies and with those with all the stakeholders. So we've we've really taken note to some of the things that we asked for, particularly gaining exceptions, for new services and repairs, which I was very vocal about. And clearly there's been adjustments on the restoration timeline, and then clarity on some of the planning efforts, and a lot of clarity on the street plates and so on. So we are, from a corporate company perspective, we are still evaluating it through our construction team. But generally, we love the feedback has been positive, because of some of those key items I just mentioned. One item in section 3, section 3.4, we really appreciated the concept of making public by July 1st, the paving for the following year. Again, we felt like that's a good idea to, that'll enable a lot of planning. And I guess one question we had was, how will this be distributed or communicated to utility companies and other stakeholders? And again, I don't know if that needs to be detailed in the ordinance itself, but just some thought and planning associated with that, we strongly encourage. And then also for any plans that we as a company submit by January 1st, we really want just to note that there is sensitivity around the competitive, and there's just security issues around our plans. And so, all our plans involve critical infrastructure, and we really just expect the city to treat any such plans as confidential, for us and even for our competitors. I mean, we want, we understand there might be, we don't want these plans, these documents just to be out there for the whole world to see, is really the main point. So, so as we submit our plans, we expect some confidentiality in terms of how those plans are stored and housed. And those are my comments and questions.
No questions. Thank you very much.
All right.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you engaging on this, and really just appreciate all the companies that we've worked with to make sure that this bill is absolutely feasible and workable in our environment. I think the end of the day, our goal is to have better roads for everybody, including you. So
Absolutely.
if Alderwoman Schweitzer would like to address any of your questions, she's welcome to as she closes.
All right, great, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you all. I appreciate that. That is something that we've put in terms of who would be responsible for making public the paving list. That would be the department with put through the Board of Public Service. Absolutely, we'll talk with them about where they plan on posting that information. I think that's something the whole city would honestly want to know. So I think that's good information to have available in a public-facing website you know, I don't know where else it would be besides the website, but I will make sure that we have that planned, if not in the bill, then at least in practice before December 6th, and we need to talk about it again and ask for your votes again. I really appreciate that feedback. The utility companies have really always said, you know, as soon as we started talking to them, you know, just tell us what you want us to do. I mean, that was kind of the refrain, and they've really held up that side of it. I think the back and forth has been more about, let's make sure that we're doing this in a way that's makes sense, is possible, and isn't going to cause more harm on accident. So we've really tried to think through all those different aspects of it, and we'll continue to. It's even if it passes out of committee today, which I do hope it does, this will be on the docket for further discussion, and my phone and inbox is always open.
Okay, well, thank you. At this time, I will check to see if we have any written comment.
We have none.
Okay, and at that, I will ask for I will accept a motion for a do pass recommendation on Board Bill 104.
So moved.
Committee
Second.
substitute. So moved. Second.
Previous roll.
Okay. Hearing no objection, congratulations, Alderwoman Schweitzer. This
Thank you.
moves on to the full board.
Thank you very much, Alderman. We will move on with our agenda, resolutions for review.
We have none.
Committee discussions.
We have none.
We have already acknowledged we do not have any written testimony, so moving on to announcements. Thank you. I would like to excuse Alderman Velasquez for necessary absence. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th.
Previous roll.
Alderman from the 9th has called for previous roll. Any discussion? Any objection to previous roll? We are adjourned.
Jump in, get the script.